Out of This World, inspired by Neville Goddard, edited and narrated by Audible Aria, originally published in 1949 by Goddard Publications. And now I have told you before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe. John 14:29. Many people, including me, have noticed events before they actually happen in our physical world. This means that life on Earth likely follows a plan. This plan must exist somewhere beyond our three-dimensional world and slowly unfold here. If we see events before they happen in this world, they must come from somewhere else, beyond our physical reality. From this perspective, the future might seem predetermined to someone living in the three-dimensional world. But this raises an important question. Can we change our future? I am writing this to explore the possibilities that exist within each of us, and to show that we can change our future. However, when we make changes, the future forms a new path, a new sequence that fits the changes we made. The most amazing thing about our future is how flexible it is. It isn't determined so much by what we do, but by how we think and feel about ourselves. Everything in life is built on how we see ourselves. We act and experience life the way we do because of what we believe about ourselves. If we believed differently, our actions and experiences would also be different. When we change how we see ourselves, our future automatically changes too. And when our future changes, it can also reshape how we see ourselves. Even the smallest assumptions we make about life, which we might think don't matter, can have a big impact. That's why it's so important to take these assumptions seriously and recognize the creative power they hold. All real changes happen within our minds. Even though the future may already be planned in some ways, it isn't fixed. There are always different possibilities waiting for us. Every moment gives us a chance to choose which version of the future we want to step into. Everyone has two ways of looking at the world: a natural perspective and a spiritual perspective. Long ago, these were called the carnal mind and the mind of Christ. Today, we might describe them as ordinary thinking, based on our senses, and imaginative thinking, guided by our deeper desires. This difference is highlighted in the saying, "The natural man cannot understand the things of the Spirit of God. They seem foolish to him, because they can only be understood spiritually." The natural way of seeing life limits reality to the present moment, the now. It treats the past and future as imaginary, not real. In contrast, the spiritual way of seeing things understands the flow of time differently. It sees the past, present, and future as a single, connected whole, like looking at objects spread out in space. What feels imaginary or intangible to the natural mind becomes solid and real to the spiritual mind. When we rely only on our senses, we miss out on what we could otherwise see and experience. To develop the ability to see beyond the visible world, we need to purposely disconnect from what our senses tell us and focus on an unseen reality. This means imagining and feeling the invisible as if it is already real, until it feels as clear and vivid as anything we see with our eyes. When we concentrate deeply on a particular idea or vision, other distractions fade away. By focusing on what we desire, we can see it more clearly. Making this a habit, turning our attention away from the physical world and toward the unseen, strengthens our spiritual perspective. It helps us look beyond what our senses can detect and connect with what seems invisible. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Romans 1:20. This kind of vision does not depend on natural abilities. We must intentionally develop and awaken it. Without it, spiritual understanding becomes impossible because the things of the spirit are spiritually discerned. With practice, we realize that by controlling our imagination, we can shape our future to match our desires. Desire is the driving force behind everything we do. Even the smallest action, like moving a finger, happens because we want to do it. Whenever we break a habit, it's because our desire to stop is stronger than our desire to continue. The desires that move us to act are the ones we give our attention to. A desire is simply the awareness of something we feel is missing or would improve our life. The greater the potential benefit, the stronger the desire. Every desire has a personal benefit attached to it. There is no such thing as a completely unselfish desire. Without something to gain, there is no desire. And without desire, there is no action. To change your future, begin by clearly deciding what you want. Be specific about your desire and focus on it. Once you know what it is, imagine an event that would naturally take place after your wish has been fulfilled. This event should imply that your desire has come true and should involve you actively participating in the moment, not as a bystander. Relax your body to prepare your mind. Lie down on a bed or sit comfortably in a chair. Close your eyes and create a state of deep relaxation, almost like you're falling asleep, but still conscious of your thoughts. In this relaxed state, focus your attention on the event you imagined. Picture it as though it's happening right now in your life. It's important not to see yourself in this scene as if you're watching it from a distance, like a movie. Instead, place yourself directly in the moment. Feel as though you are experiencing it firsthand. For example, if your desire is to receive a promotion at work, imagine someone congratulating you. Feel their handshake or their hand on your shoulder. Hear their voice as they express their happiness for you. Let the moment feel as real as possible. Make sure this imagined event is something that would naturally happen after your wish has been fulfilled. Feel every detail of it, the sensations, the sounds, the emotions, until the scene becomes vivid and lifelike. Focus on experiencing the moment as though it's happening here and now, not as something far off in the future. By fully immersing yourself in this mental scene, you align your mind with the reality of your desire being fulfilled. This mental practice trains your imagination to become a powerful tool for reshaping your future. It allows you to act as if your wish is already a reality, which sets the process of realization into motion. To change your future and connect with your deeper spiritual self, certain key steps are necessary. These include having a clear desire, relaxing your body to the point where you are almost asleep, and vividly imagining yourself performing an action related to your desire as if it is happening right now. When your body is still and you fully focus on imagining this action with feeling and belief, your consciousness begins to shift. If this state continues until you fall asleep, you may wake up in a larger dimension of reality, fully immersed in the action you imagined. Even if you don't awaken in this higher dimension, your imagined action is already occurring there, and it will eventually play out in your physical reality. From experience, it's important to focus on a single, simple act that symbolizes the fulfillment of your desire. Repeat this action in your imagination until it feels real. Avoid letting your mind wander to other unrelated ideas or images, as this can distract you from your goal. For example, if your goal involves climbing a specific staircase, concentrate on this one action. Keep imagining yourself climbing those stairs over and over again until it feels as real as if you were doing it in the physical world. If your mind drifts, gently bring your focus back to the action. The key is to immerse yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled without forcing it. Relaxation helps this process, especially a drowsy state where your mind is focused yet effortless. Avoid falling completely asleep, as that would take away your ability to direct your thoughts. In this relaxed state, imagine your desire as already fulfilled and repeat a short phrase that implies success, such as "thank you," as if you are expressing gratitude for its completion. If you aim to consciously project your awareness into a higher dimension, maintain the imagined action right up until you fall asleep. In this dimensionally larger world, your imagination creates realities that eventually manifest in your physical life. To make your desires real, vividly imagine, with all the details, how it would feel to achieve your goal. Persist in this imaginative experience until it feels completely natural and true. Assumptions, even if they seem unreal at first, will harden into reality if you continue to believe in them. These assumptions work by influencing events and inspiring people around you to act in ways that align with your desire. Over time, what began as a vision in your imagination will become a tangible reality in your life. To understand how we shape our future to align with our assumptions, we need to grasp the idea of a dimensionally larger world. This is because any changes we want to make in our three-dimensional world, what we see and experience every day, must first be made in the four-dimensional world. Observing an event before it happens shows that, from the perspective of our three-dimensional world, the event is already predetermined. So, to change what happens in our current reality, we must first make that change in this larger four-dimensional world. Many people are unfamiliar with the idea of a dimensionally larger world and might even reject the idea of having a larger self connected to it. In our everyday experience, we're comfortable with the three dimensions: length, width, and height. If there were a fourth dimension, we often think it would be as obvious to us as the other three. But a dimension is not necessarily a physical line. It's simply a new way of measuring something that isn't covered by the dimensions we already know. For example, to measure an object in the fourth dimension, you would measure it in a direction that's entirely different from length, width, and height. One example of a fourth dimension is time. Time allows us to measure objects in a way that doesn't rely on their physical dimensions. Nothing exists in an instant. Everything takes time to appear, exist, and disappear. Time gives us a way to measure the lifespan of something without using its length, width, or height. Time, therefore, is a fourth dimension, because it allows us to measure something differently than physical space does. As we add more dimensions to an object, it becomes more substantial and real. A line, which exists in only one dimension, gains shape and substance when we add more dimensions to it. For example, a surface is more complex than a line, and a solid is more complex than a surface. When we add time, the fourth dimension, objects gain the ability to change. This changeability makes them vastly more dynamic than what exists in just three dimensions. The same way solids are more advanced than surfaces, and surfaces are more advanced than lines. Think about how objects relate to each other across dimensions. If you cut through a solid object, you're left with a surface. If you cut through a surface, you get a line. If you cut through a line, you're left with a point. This means that a point is just a smaller slice of a line. A line is a smaller slice of a surface. and a surface is a smaller slice of a solid. Following this logic, our solid three-dimensional world is just a slice of a four-dimensional reality. This larger world is where changes are first made before they show up in our everyday lives. All three-dimensional objects are like slices or cross-sections of a larger four-dimensional reality. When I meet you, I am only seeing a part of your whole, which is your four-dimensional self, a part of you that isn't visible to the physical eye. To truly see the four-dimensional you, I would need to observe every single moment of your life, from the time you were born to the time you die. These moments wouldn't appear as a sequence, happening one after the other, but as one complete, coexisting whole. In this view, everything you've experienced and everything you might experience exists together. Since the fourth dimension is marked by constant change, this entire picture would be alive and dynamic, shifting and moving like a living animated story. What does this mean for us in our everyday three-dimensional world? It suggests that time is not fixed, and if we could move freely through it, we could see the future and even change it. The world we live in, which feels so solid and real, is actually just a shadow of something larger, a fragment of a more expansive foundational reality. And that larger reality is, in turn, just a fragment of something even bigger. This chain continues infinitely, with each layer of existence being a step closer to an absolute truth that we can never fully grasp, no matter how far we expand our understanding. You can prove to yourself that a dimensionally larger world exists by focusing your attention on something invisible, something that you can only imagine, and by truly feeling that it is real, your current surroundings will fade. When you are fully absorbed in this imagined state, you will wake up in a larger world where what you envisioned has become a concrete reality. If you go even deeper into your mind from this larger world, time itself will reshape again, and space will grow even bigger. Every time you withdraw from the physical and go deeper into your inner self, time and space expand. This suggests that life is like climbing an endless ladder of dimensions, each one larger and more intricate than the last. While scientists may one day explain why this serial universe exists, where dimensions build upon each other, the practical question is, how do we use this knowledge to change our future? To do this, we only need to focus on two worlds: the physical world we know through our senses, and the invisible world we perceive with our imagination and inner mind. Most people believe the physical world is the only reality because they don't know how to focus their attention in a way that lets them see beyond its surface. The goal of this perspective is to lift the veil created by our senses, to explore the invisible world beyond. Removing this veil doesn't require effort or struggle. The objective world fades away simply by shifting our attention away from it and focusing inward on what is unseen. This shift reveals the deeper truth and opens the door to the dimensionally larger reality where we can shape our future. To turn your desires into reality, you must focus your attention on the state you want to achieve. It's not enough to simply think about it. You need to focus on it with such intensity that it begins to feel real to you. Once this invisible state takes on a sense of reality in your mind, you give it the power to become a concrete fact in the physical world. If you find it hard to concentrate while you're in a relaxed, almost sleepy state, you can try fixing your gaze on a simple object, like a wall or a carpet, something with depth but minimal reflection. Instead of looking at the surface, imagine looking through it, into its depths. In this imagined depth, see and hear what you desire as if it's happening now. Focus on this imagined state until your mind is completely absorbed in it. When your meditation ends and you return to the physical world, it might feel like you've come back from a distant place. The real world may remind you that your imagined experience wasn't real. However, if you understand that your consciousness creates reality, you won't be discouraged. Instead, you'll remain committed to your vision, knowing that sustained focus gives it the power to manifest as a tangible fact. Start by defining your ideal, what you truly want to be or experience. Concentrate your attention on identifying yourself with this ideal. Feel as though you are already living it. Imagine the emotions, thoughts, and behaviors you would have if your desire were already a reality. Then, act and live from that conviction. Even if your senses deny it at first, persistence will transform your assumption into fact. You'll know you've succeeded when your internal perspective on others begins to change. For example, in the mental conversations you have with people, you'll notice a shift in how you perceive them and how they respond to you in your imagination. These mental dialogues reveal your true beliefs about yourself. If you still see others as you always have, it's a sign that your concept of yourself hasn't changed. A true change in your self-concept will naturally alter your relationship with others. During meditation, imagine how others would see you if your desire were already fulfilled. See yourself through their eyes as the person you aspire to be. Imagine their reactions, words, and feelings toward this new version of you. This mental image strengthens your belief and helps you embody the reality of your ideal self. When you fully assume that you are already what you want to be, the longing for it disappears. You no longer feel like you're striving to achieve something distant. Instead, you recognize it as something you already possess. Desire transforms into a state of being. To desire and to be are one and the same. Once you accept this, you understand that what you conceive yourself to be is never separate from you. It's not even near, because nearness implies separation. Instead, your ideal self is a part of you, waiting to be realized. If you can believe, everything is possible for the one who believes. Faith is the foundation of what you hope for, and the proof of things not yet visible. When you believe and act as though you are already what you want to be, you'll start to see others and the world around you in alignment with that belief. If you want something good for someone else, you must imagine them as already being what you wish for them. In meditation, picture them clearly as having achieved what you desire for them. It's through strong desire that you can rise above your current situation. The gap between wanting something and actually having it becomes shorter when you vividly imagine in your mind what it would feel like if it were already real in your life. Every moment, we have the power to choose which future we will experience. But then the question comes up, how can this be if what we experience in the physical world seems to already be set? This is because we can only see life as a series of events happening one after the other, like listening to the words on this audiobook. Imagine that each word on a page is like a single moment in your life. You are reading one word at a time, moving left to right. And by the time you reach the end of the page, you understand the meaning. But what if, instead of reading in order, you chose to rearrange the words? By changing their order, you could tell a completely different story, or even many different ones. Dreams are like this rearrangement of events, except they are uncontrolled thoughts in a fourth-dimensional space. In dreams, we often blend together events from the past and future, creating something entirely new. Unlike when we're awake, events in dreams don't follow a logical order. We might combine experiences from different times into a single scene, or rearrange them so much that we don't even recognize them when we wake up and experience them again. One night, I dreamed that I delivered a package to the restaurant in my apartment building. When I got there, the hostess told me, "You can't leave that there." Then the elevator operator handed me a few letters, and I thanked him. In return, he thanked me back. After that, the night elevator operator appeared and waved a greeting to me. That was the end of the dream. The next day, real life played out in an interesting way. When I left my apartment, I picked up a few letters that had been left at my door. On my way down, I gave the day elevator operator a tip and thanked him for taking care of my mail. He thanked me for the tip in return. Later, as I returned home, I overheard a doorman telling a delivery person, "You can't leave that there." As I approached the elevator, I noticed someone familiar in the restaurant, and the hostess smiled and greeted me warmly. Later that night, after having dinner guests over, I walked them to the elevator. As I said goodbye, the night elevator operator waved goodnight to me, just like in my dream. This shows how dreams don't always follow reality exactly. My mind rearranged small moments and details from my waking life, things I was going to experience, and fused them into a dream that felt different from the actual events. It's like my subconscious created a story by taking bits and pieces of real life and combining them in a new way. When we learn to focus our attention in the four-dimensional world of imagination, we can consciously create events in the physical, three-dimensional world. This control is developed through the waking dream, a state where our attention remains steady and effortless. Effortless attention is crucial for changing the future. In a waking dream, we construct a scene that represents the fulfillment of what we desire. The elements we use to create this scene come from sensory impressions that already exist but are rearranged in time. We simply choose specific impressions and organize them into a sequence that implies our desire is already realized. Once we have a clear picture of the scene, we relax our body and enter a deeply calm state, close to sleep, but not fully asleep. In this state, we remain conscious and in control of our focus. We then experience the imagined scene as if it were happening right now. We feel the emotions, see the details, and immerse ourselves fully in the experience. The only thing that occupies the mind during this process is the imagined scene, which represents the fulfillment of our desire. How the imagined scene becomes a reality is not our concern. Accepting the waking dream as real sets the process in motion. Here's how to do it. 1. Define your goal. Be completely clear about what you want. 2. Create a scene. Imagine an event that would naturally occur after your goal is fulfilled, making sure it includes your active participation and clearly shows that your desire has been achieved. 3. Relax and visualize. Sit comfortably, relax your body, and enter a state similar to sleep. In this state, mentally experience the imagined scene as if it's happening right now, fully engaging your senses and emotions in the action. Through experience, I've come to believe that this approach is the best way to achieve my goals. Still, I must admit that I've had my share of failures. It would be dishonest to say I've completely mastered controlling my attention. Yet, like the ancient teacher said, this one thing I do, forgetting what's behind me and reaching toward what's ahead, I press on toward the prize. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John 8:32. Many people believe that for something to be true, it must match what they see and experience in the outside world. For example, if I were imprisoned and told myself I was free, truly believing in my freedom, it would be true that I believe I am free. But this wouldn't necessarily mean I am actually free. They would say I'm simply imagining something false. However, based on my own experiences, I've learned to embrace ideas that seem strange or beyond normal understanding. Because of what I've seen, I find little reason to doubt truths that are outside my immediate experience. The ancient teachers warned us not to rely too heavily on appearances. They taught that truth does not need to match the external reality we see. They also said that imagining harm or evil toward another person is bearing false witness. Even if that belief seems justified by the external world, it is still false if it does not set the other person free. A true judgment, they argued, is one that liberates. We are called to reject what our senses tell us and instead imagine the best for others. To truly know the truth about our neighbor, we must assume they are already what they wish to be. Any thought we hold about them that falls short of their fulfilled desire is not the truth and cannot set them free. Rather than learning from traditional schools, where courses and seminars are often treated as substitutes for direct experience, I dedicated my education to mastering the power of imagination. For hours, I would sit and imagine myself as someone entirely different from what my senses and logic told me I was. I stayed with these imagined states until they felt as vivid as reality itself. Sometimes, this vivid imagination would even influence the behavior of those around me. Passers-by seemed to act as if they were part of my imagined reality, speaking and behaving in ways that matched the state I was living in within my mind. By using the power of imagination, I found that my inner vision shaped not only my own thoughts and feelings, but also influenced the actions and conversations of those I encountered. A person's imagination is their true self, and the world as imagination sees it is the real world. However, it is our responsibility to imagine only what is good, beautiful, and uplifting. As it is written, the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at outward appearances, but the Lord looks at the heart. And, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. When I meditate, I find that my imagination becomes luminous and magnetic, drawing to me the things I deeply desire. Desire is the force that powers imagination, shaping the world around me in the same way I shape it within myself. First, I desire to see a person or scene, and then I imagine as though I am already seeing it. Before long, the imagined vision becomes real in the external world. If I desire to hear something, I listen as though I'm already hearing it. The imagined voice then speaks exactly what I mentally dictate, as if it were originating the message. I could give countless examples to prove how imagined states become physical realities. However, I understand that for those who haven't experienced such things, or who are skeptical of these ideas, my examples might seem unbelievable. Still, I stand by the truth of the statement. He calls those things which do not exist as though they did. Romans 4:17. Through deep meditation, I have imagined things that were not visible as if they were already real. And time and again, the unseen has become seen and ultimately manifested as tangible reality. This method works by first desiring something, and then imagining that we are already living or experiencing what we desire. By doing this, we shape our future to align with our goals. However, we must heed the wisdom of the prophet and focus only on what is good and beautiful. Imagination works with equal power, whether driven by good intentions or negative ones. As it is said, I have set before you life and good, death and evil. Deuteronomy 30:15. The choice of what we imagine is always ours. Desire and imagination are like the magic wand in fairy tales. They attract to themselves the things they are aligned with. They are most powerful when the mind is in a deeply relaxed state, similar to the edge of sleep. While I've already explained the method I use to enter this higher realm of imagination, I will now share one more approach for opening the door to this larger dimension of experience. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, while they lie slumbering on their beds, God opens their ears and seals their instruction. Job 33:15-16. When we dream, we are often not in control of what we see or experience. Instead, we feel like we're simply following along, letting the dream carry us. But the fascinating thing is that the inner visions we see in dreams can be brought into the real world. Dreams, like deep meditation, allow us to step out of the familiar three-dimensional world into a much larger and deeper dimension. Dreams are not just flat, two-dimensional images, like modern psychologists often claim. The forms we encounter in dreams are more real and solid than they seem. They are part of this larger, higher dimensional world. I've learned something powerful. If I catch myself dreaming, I can grab hold of something in the dream, a chair, a table, stairs, or even a tree, and command myself to wake up. When I do this, while firmly holding onto the object from the dream, I feel myself being pulled through my inner self. This sensation is like waking up from the dream, but instead of returning to my regular waking life, I find myself in another realm entirely. In this other world, I'm no longer just a passive observer of my visions. I become the master of them. I am fully awake and aware, able to control my thoughts and focus my attention with purpose. It's in this state, fully conscious and in control, that we can begin to call things into existence. Here, we can bring unseen things into being simply by wishing for them and fully believing they are already real. Unlike the physical world, where we often have to wait for our desires to unfold, in this larger dimension, our assumptions immediately become reality. Whatever we imagine and believe to be true instantly takes form. In this realm, there is no waiting, no delay. It's like looking at an empty field and imagining a harvest. And suddenly, the field is full of ripe crops, ready to gather. This is the place where the words, "You shall not need to fight. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord with you." 2 Chronicles 20:17. Take on a profound meaning. In this higher dimensional world, we don't need to struggle or fight to make things happen. Instead, we align our imagination and belief with our desires, and the greater world shapes itself around us. And because this larger dimension flows into and through our three-dimensional world, we can use the power of our imagination to shape our physical reality. All we need to do is see in our mind what we wish to see, hear what we wish to hear, and feel as if we are already touching the things we desire. By living in this state of assumption, the things we imagine will eventually harden into facts in our waking life. Imagination, when used with belief and focus, becomes the bridge between the unseen and the seen, allowing us to mold the world in harmony with our deepest desires. For those who believe that truth must always match what they see in the external world. This idea might seem foolish or even ridiculous. It could feel like a stumbling block. But my belief and what I practice is this: focus your mind on the reality you want to create, even if it doesn't match what you see around you right now. Through my own experiences, I've learned that when we hold firmly to a certain belief or mindset, even if it seems imaginary and doesn't match external facts, those things which are not can eventually replace things that are. This means that what you imagine can override the current reality you're living in. My goal isn't to write a book full of miraculous stories, but instead to guide people back to the one truth that ancient teachers understood and honored as God, our consciousness. Everything those ancient teachers said about God can also be applied to human consciousness. It's the source of everything, the foundation from which all things grow. That's why it's written, "He that glorieth, let him glory in his own consciousness." Our awareness of being, our I am, is the essence of creation. As it is said, "I am the vine," meaning that everything grows out of this core awareness. So, the eternal question is this: who am I? How you answer that question shapes the role you play in the world. It determines how you see yourself and the life you live. Your answer doesn't have to match the reality you see around you. In fact, the great truth lies in this teaching. Let the weak say, "I am strong." It's not about accepting what appears to be. It's about declaring and believing in what you wish to become, even if it's not visible yet. Think about all the good resolutions you've made in past New Year's. How many of them faded away after a short while? Why did they fail? Because they weren't rooted in your consciousness. They were fleeting ideas that didn't grow from a solid foundation. The key is to assume you already are what you want to be. Imagine, in vivid detail, how it feels to live as that person. Experience it so clearly in your mind that it feels real. Then, stay loyal to that assumption. Let it define who you are and how you see yourself. Nothing can survive without being connected to its roots. In the same way, everything in your life springs from your consciousness, your sense of I am. If you sever yourself from this foundation, your desires will wither away, just like those forgotten resolutions. But when you remain connected to the truth of your being, you can create a life that reflects the person you truly want to be. Everything begins and grows from your awareness of who you are. If you don't believe that I am who I say I am, you will remain in your sins, says John 8:24. This means that if I don't believe I am already the person I wish to become, I will stay as I am and die holding on to my current view of myself. There is no power outside of our own awareness that can bring to life the things we desire. A person who can picture whatever they want with their imagination becomes the master of their own destiny. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if they die, will live, says John 11:25. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Remind us that self-awareness leads to freedom. There is no one to change but yourself. And for their sake, I make myself holy, so they too can be made holy through the truth, says John 17:19. The goals and ideals we strive for are not separate from us. They are already within us, waiting to be realized. I want to share an experience I wrote about 2 years ago because I believe it highlights how the law of consciousness works. These ideas remind us that we only need to change ourselves to bring about the changes we desire. During a quiet moment at sea, I began reflecting on what it would mean to exist in the perfect state. I wondered how I would be if I was so pure that I could see no fault or evil, if everything appeared pure to me, and if I lived without judgment or condemnation? As I deeply focused on this idea, my thoughts carried me beyond the limits of my physical senses. The intensity of my feelings was so strong that I felt transformed into a being of fire, housed in a body of air. In this heightened state, I heard voices, like a heavenly choir, singing with the joy of those who had overcome death, proclaiming, "He is risen, he is risen." Somehow I understood they were speaking about me. In the vision, I found myself walking in the night. I soon came upon a place that resembled the ancient pool of Bethesda. There, a large crowd of suffering people lay, blind, crippled, and withered, not waiting for the traditional stirring of the waters, but waiting for me. As I moved closer, something extraordinary happened. Without effort or conscious thought on my part, they began to be transformed. It was as though some unseen power molded their missing eyes, hands, and feet into being, drawing these parts from an invisible source. Each person was made whole in alignment with the perfection I felt, radiating from within me. When all had been healed, the choir joyfully declared, "It is finished." Then the scene dissolved, and I woke up. I realized this vision was the result of my intense meditation on the concept of perfection. My focus on this ideal had temporarily fused my consciousness with it, allowing me to experience a higher state of being. For that brief time, I had become the very thing I contemplated, and this inner alignment attracted higher energies, creating a vision that mirrored my inner transformation. This experience, like many others I've had, convinced me of a profound truth. The only way to bring about the perfection we seek in the world is by transforming ourselves. When we change who we are at our core, the world around us will reshape itself to reflect our transformation. The outer world is always a mirror of the inner self, and when we align with higher ideals, the world magically adjusts to match our new state of being. In the divine plan, nothing is ever truly lost. We can only lose something by falling away from the state of being where it naturally belongs. Death has no power to transform, and wherever we are, whether in this life or another, we shape the world around us through the strength of our imagination and emotions. Our lives grow brighter or darker depending on how we see ourselves. The most critical aspect of our lives is how we think about ourselves, particularly our understanding of the higher infinite self within us. The people who help or hinder us, whether they are aware of it or not, are instruments of a greater law. This law ensures that our external circumstances align with our inner nature. It is how we perceive and define ourselves that determines whether we feel free or trapped. Though material events may appear to play a role in this process, since life reflects the arrangement of our minds, the only way to achieve the outer perfection we desire is by transforming ourselves internally. No help can come from outside. The hills we look to for assistance are not external, but are found within us. Our consciousness is the ultimate reality and the foundation of all experiences. This law is perfectly just, giving to each of us only what matches our inner nature. Trying to change the world without first changing our self-concept is like fighting against the natural order. Outer changes cannot happen without inner transformation. As we are within, so the world around us will be. This doesn't mean we should adopt a passive attitude, but rather that we must imagine ourselves already being the person we want to become, living in a mindset of greatness. Simply trying to force change through physical effort or arguments, without shifting our consciousness, is like rearranging the surface of things without addressing the root cause. No matter how much we struggle, we can only receive what matches the assumptions we hold about ourselves. Complaining about our circumstances is ultimately a rejection of the law that governs our lives and our ability to shape our destiny. The events of my life are too closely tied to my self-concept to have been caused by anything other than my own spirit. If I find pain in these experiences, I must look within to discover the source. It is my self-perception that moves me, shaping my world to reflect what I believe about myself. Deep and focused meditation allows us to merge with the state or idea we are contemplating. During this connection, we experience visions, feelings, and behaviors that reflect our shift in consciousness. This demonstrates a profound truth. Changing our state of mind leads to changes in both our environment and how we act. History shows us that intense emotions, especially negative ones, can dramatically reshape our mental and social landscapes. Wars, for example, are a striking example of how violent emotions like hate trigger a reorganization of consciousness. After every major conflict, we often see a period dominated by materialism and greed, where the lofty ideals that inspired the war are overshadowed. This happens because war stirs up hatred, which pulls our consciousness down from higher ideals to the lower destructive level of conflict. If we could direct the same intense emotions toward the ideals we wish to achieve, as we do toward the things we dislike or oppose, we could rise just as quickly to the level of those ideals. Love and hate both possess a remarkable power to transform us, and we become more like the things we focus on with strong emotion. When we hate, we often end up adopting the very qualities we despise in others. On the other hand, if we focus intensely on love, beauty, and joy, we begin to embody those qualities instead. Unwanted states of mind or behavior fade when we stop giving them attention. Instead of directly fighting against these negative states, we can replace them by imagining something better, beauty for ashes, and joy for mourning. By focusing on positive, admirable qualities, we naturally grow into alignment with them. As it is said, whatever is lovely and of good report, think on these things, because we become what we are most in harmony with. Ultimately, the only thing we need to change is how we see ourselves. The moment we successfully transform our self-concept, the world around us will shift as if by magic, reshaping itself to reflect the new reality we affirm. Thank you for listening.